Hmm. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll hit this. There we go.
I'm going live on Facebook in just a moment here.
I'm going to adjust my screen here a little bit. Okay. Say when.
I will.
It shows that it's live right now.
Yes, we are. Hello and welcome. This is Lindsay from the Momentum Talk Show, and today I have with me Edwin Cohen. Say hello, Edwin.
Hello, Edwin.
I haven't had that answer yet. Very good. Thank you for early Friday morning here. Early for me and even earlier for you.
A little after 8. I've been up a couple hours. It's okay.
There we go. Same here. After 10 for me. So I got a little more prep time. So we are both here, and I'm just going to share with you all what Momentum stands for, how it came about, and we are going to learn about Edwin and maybe pick his brain a little bit for a few questions. So let's begin. How does that sound, Edwin?
Enticing.
Fabulous. Let's go for it. So Momentum stands for Monumental Opportunity Manifesting Extraordinary New Times Upon Man and Womankind. And it was a complete download just around when COVID started. I think Edwin and I have something in common here. And I got a message saying you're going to start a talk show. And I said, what's it going to be called? And they said, Momentum. And I said, well, what does that stand for? And I got the download of the meaning. And here we are today. This led to the Facebook group Divine Beings of Light Unite, which went on to the dance group that I have, Delivering a New Chance Everywhere, which many of you are fans of. And Edwin is going to share about his show and himself today and his journey since April of last year, it sounds like.
So tell me about dance. What kind of dance?
All kinds, actually. And so my turn. Okay.
So
Deflection at its finest.
I mean, it's like I'm redirecting on purpose, but not avoiding.
Got it.
So is it Zumba or what kind of stretch kind of thing do you do?
Oh, I teach Latin dance yoga, so I take the 5 Latin dances, cumbia, merengue, salsa, cha-cha-cha, and bachata, and put them into a yoga class because my background's actually in dance, ballet, tap, and jazz for many years, ballroom, and then went on to do Latin dance. And then I became a yoga instructor. So I thought, well, a friend of mine, a yoga instructor friend of mine said, why don't you just put the 2 things you love together? And I said, oh, what a great idea. And out came Latin dance yoga.
So what is the meaning of salsa? When you say salsa dancing, does that mean it's just hot and rhythmic?
It has a specific beat to it. And a lot of people, I thought you were going to say salsa and chips. No, it's not related to that. You can eat your salsa and chips and salsa dance.
I eat it. Yeah.
There you go. Some people eat and watch others dance. That's an option too.
So all of this is like and I'll talk about me, but what you just said is all about mind control, right? I mean, controlling yourself, controlling your actions, and making them become a movement, physical movement.
Why do you use the word control?
Well, because some people are totally looking like jerks when they dance. They have no rhythm and then no coordination. And if you do a dance, you have a rhythm like that. But a lot of people can't even do that. So.
Yeah, I would agree with both. And I left out one type of dance that I have done that has been very therapeutic, since COVID, is ecstatic dance. So yes, the Latin dances and many dances do have a specific beat, specific rhythm, specific steps. And yes, that is organized. There's a small amount of freedom within the organization. However, on the flip side, or on the other side of the balance, I'm a Libra, so let's put the scales up here as normal, is ecstatic dance is really freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and it gets out so many emotions. It can be very, very healing for people, especially if you have stored trauma in the body. And so that one has a lot of freedom with it. However, to balance the two, I believe in freedom with boundaries. I think you can really create a lot of much can be created within a set of boundaries.
So what pleasure do you, and I'll talk about me, but what pleasure do you get out of doing this kind of a show?
This show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So my first show, I actually had my daughter on because Lila is fantastic at fashion, and I was interviewing before school one day. How did you decide to put this together? And I was really getting into the thought process of how she was matching her clothes together, which were very creative in my opinion. And I wanted to know how she thought.
And
And then
how old is Lila?
Lila is 7,
Got it.
and Lila has shaved one side of their head and then let
Oh,
the other side grow long. So she's
wow.
got style. And so the way I thought of it was I've heard so many when I was announcing the show, my thought process was or my idea was all these people that I have met that have given me tips and tricks I wanted to share with the world. And so it wasn't only getting into their brain to see how they think, it was like, hey, I learned this really important lesson from this person. It may have been one sentence or one key word that they said in conversation that they thought was potentially a bunch of nothing or not meaningful to them, but for me it changed my life. And so I started asking people to come on the show that had been really meaningful to me, and it has gone on from there to be, recorded Zooms to going on to live, which we're doing now, and it's just been really a great time and a beautiful thing to be able to do, especially during COVID, because we don't have to be in the same room. The first show we were in the same room. After that, it wasn't.
Yeah, I know. So my primary business, well, I've been in several, but everything's public relations and marketing since I've been about 15. But for many years, I produced live training conferences across the US and Canada, Mexico, Brazil, and Europe, and like 350 or so of these things. And then COVID come along in late February of 2020. Our last live meetings were in New York Times Square on Feb 25 and Feb 27 in Washington, D.C. on Embassy Row. And these were already set up. But on the plane ride back from Reagan National into San Diego, I was like the only one on the plane other than the flight crew. And then, boy, was that weird.
I bet.
And then then the next day, everything just shut down. And
Mm,
business crashed and burned, no revenue. Of course, you have no expenses for travel either, which was pretty high.
true.
But then I had to recreate or do something, survive. And I decided, well, I better learn how to be a talk show host. And, because this is actually TV,
Yeah.
this is TV and you got to be camera ready
Yeah.
mentally, not just
True.
looking okay and have good lighting or whatever. So we decided that I can call on Zoom, have a global teleconference. In other words, bring people together into what I call the global meeting room. This,
Mhm.
and so I've had broadcasts bringing people together from India and Sri Lanka and Hong Kong and China, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, as well as Western Hemisphere, all in the same place, collapsing time and almost zero cost.
Yeah,
So
true.
it's a no-brainer,
Mhm.
and that's what's driving companies nuts right now because they have everything based upon this kind of travel budget, this kind of client exposure
Yeah.
or contact,
Mhm.
and it's been proven that you don't need that.
Right.
But
True.
some of the people are rigid and not trained in how to allow that to happen, never mind do it themselves.
Ah,
And that is what's going on right now in big companies, big
so
companies.
are you saying that's a mentality?
And it's a problem.
Mm,
So, uh, but things will work out. It's just a little rougher than everybody thought it might be, from a human structural point of view. So, what I'm doing is creating a talk flow, what I call a talk flow,
talk
not
flow. Okay.
talk show.
Cool.
Sounds like you're Alex Trebek on Jeopardy or something, but it's actually a talk flow. In other words, how do you manage people from different cultures and different time zones and different lives, to
Yeah.
try to understand each other through
Mhm.
a TV screen?
Mm-hmm.
and without making it a shouting match or embarrassing anybody unintentionally. It's difficult. So uh, we've been able to do that very well most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept of what you and I are doing right now is not only the feelings and the concept of uh, making deliverables
Mm.
for the customer, whoever that customer is,
Right.
and retaining, not just attracting an audience, but okay, there's people out there watching. This is live on Facebook and whatever. And you could reach me at globalbusinessnews.net. Go check it out. But the concept here is to get people to talk, just like you and I, about themselves and why should anybody listen or care, right?
Yeah, I'm listening. Just trying to gain perspective on a couple of things you said.
Yeah. So one of your themes today, as I understand it, is the secret lives of men. So I'm sure that means in a business context and lifestyle context, right?
There's a header in front of that actually, which might clarify for the audience even. It's
Thank you.
called Feel. You're
And
welcome.
and for me, clarify for me.
Yeah. Feelings, flesh, and freedom. The secret
What?
lives of men.
Feelings, what?
Flesh,
Flash.
not flash like the flash. Flesh, like
Oh,
tangible. The
oh,
freak
flesh.
world we live in.
Skin.
Yeah. Yes. You want to get graphic? Yes. Skin, flesh, and freedom. And so some of the interview questions are related to those topics.
Okay, ask me something.
What is your definition of freedom?
Well, the ability to do this.
Okay. And what does this mean to you?
Impromptu. It's almost like stand-up comedy, and with unrehearsed. And
Mm.
okay, what comes up next? So, what was that question?
There's a few and they build off each other. So the first one is what is your definition of freedom and how does this definition play out in your life or does it? It appears it does.
Well, I've made it work this way because it's comfortable for me. And so, what we're doing is coming up with topics, or somebody's telling me what to do, and then I'm implementing it to make it
Okay.
fit me, you know, and
Yeah.
my channel. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and so what I'm trying to do, just like you and other hosts, broadcast hosts, which seemingly are everywhere now, is to not only talk about themselves, but also retain an audience that they may have, even if it's only one or two.
Mm.
Uh, they're going to jump off and go to another channel if you don't do something as a host, if you don't do something that's intelligent and meaningful for them. And how do you know what they want? And so it is a game. And most, if they haven't already, will experience loss, LOSS, loss of customers, loss of viewers, a declining audience. And in the broadcast business, which is what this is, that's called death. Okay, so the yeah, I mean
Oh my
zip.
gosh.
Yeah, so you want to step away and that bullet go by and dodge a bullet. So you have to do that by understanding what is cool. What does the audience and which audience? What does the audience want in a program like this, and from a dialogue like this? What do they want? Well, how do we know? So we have to watch what others are doing, and we have to look at what's on broadcast and cable and Netflix and all that, and watch what's going on out there, and then try to replicate it. You can't copy, but you have to adapt what's out there to your own world and then go down a pathway. what you think is going to go somewhere and or result in something. So having the ability to to innovate and get things done like that, the way you or I see things fit for our own purposes that day, that's freedom. And if somebody says, who's your audience for this kind of thing, Ed? Uh, Lindsay, who's your audience for this? Is it male? Is it female? Are they working or are they at home collecting government checks? Who is the audience? How are they productive or are they receptors rather than producers? Are they tax-paying people or are they not? So, everyone's a taxpayer. I don't mean to do a blanket thing like that. You go to the market, you're going to pay a tax on whatever you buy, right? So everyone's a taxpayer. But that's another topic, which I'm very happy to talk about. So you live in the upper Midwest and you have no water problem, right? It rains, it snows, right? It's normal. Well, here in the Southwest, doesn't work that way. And this is really a tinderbox right now. In Southern California, we're on the verge of drastic fires. And California's a big state. I mean, it's huge. It's like almost, I don't know, it's 1,500 miles north-south and several hundred miles wide, usually. Takes up almost all, not all, but almost all of the West Coast. It is huge. And that means that, and the prevailing winds usually are west to east. So whatever happens somewhere in the state is going to wind up in the Midwest, and then go somewhere else, like the smoke that's going on.
I've heard of this. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is really a big problem. So one of the biggest problems, and we'll get back to the feelings things, but is water. So not only do we have this huge ocean right out here, just 100 yards from here is the Pacific Ocean. Because I live in downtown San Diego in Seaport Village, and the harbor is right there.
Okay.
Okay. So why not desalinate? Somehow spend some of that infrastructure money and create a system of using that ocean water and desalinate it, just like they do in Israel and Saudi Arabia and other places, but on a huge scale, and then sell it, and water becomes like the new oil, right? But I don't know why that isn't being done, or if it is, it's a top secret. And so that will create even more freedom. It will make some people really rich if they figure out how to do that. But they will deserve it, frankly, because it's for the betterment of society out here. But there's another way of doing it, and it's called pipelines. Now, it's a political issue, unfortunately, but it shouldn't be, because it's an economic issue. So pipelines transmit gas and water, or, oil, whatever, right? It's huge business in the energy business. Huge. Been around forever. But nobody has built a pipeline from New Orleans or Alabama, around the Gulf Coast where it rains every day, to transport the water, that runoff water. They just get doused, with flooding and all that, and they don't know what to do with that water. So it just floods everything and then goes out to sea again. But why not capture some of that downpour and put it in pipelines and send it out here and charge us for it? We'll pay. Okay. Think of all the jobs that will create and all the good it will do. So anyway, that's my high horse about all that. It's not political, it's strictly business. And that will create even more freedom. So rather than fear, because mental health is a huge issue as a result of the pandemic and its impact on a variety of people. Everybody has been impacted in one way or another by the pandemic. Every company also whether they want to admit it or not. So everything has to change. And things are happening, but there's some missing links because it's getting wrapped up in politics, and it shouldn't be, but it is. So on a program like this, where you're reaching a whole bunch of people, you have no idea who's watching or still watching, and you have no idea who these people are. But let's just say that it's in everybody's interest to be healthy and to be happy somehow, and it means something different to everybody else, and that's a definition of freedom I think everybody can deal with. So the talk show idea has turned into a vehicle for discussion, not just about business things, transactional business stuff, but how we think about what's going on around us. It's not political. It's strictly lifestyle and business. What do you think?
Thank you for answering that. I think there have been a lot of connections made, and people do need emotional support during this time because there has been a lot of loss. Maybe it's physical loss, family members, their job, maybe they're starting a new career, becoming an entrepreneur for the first time,
Right.
pivoting, which we all know of. And, now things are changing again. I'd like to take a quick pivot and have you comment on the photo behind you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a picture of Venice. There it is on the wall. It actually was taken from my phone, and one of these. And a few years ago, Joanne and I were in Venice, and I don't know if you've been to Venice, but there's a lot of
I have.
small canals like this thing here, and of course a couple of really big ones. So there's many of these small tributary things, and people live there. Now this is in an upscale area, and this building it has like a white there, a white that's like a granite actually, and then above it is brick and stucco, and you see the trees in the background. So anyway, this building right here, right over there, is actually a 5-star restaurant, right? And we're on a bridge, one of these little walkover bridges.
Yeah.
You get from one side to another. And so we just came out of a meal, and this is a few years ago. No, it was a wonderful. Sit outside. It's great. I forget what time of year that was, but it was obviously summer because look at the trees. But so that's so enlarged, and here it is. So some people have a background like what you have, which is very homey and very comfortable, and then other people put a fake background, behind them on Zooms.
Right. Yeah.
And some of it is really stupid looking, and then others are
no judgment. We don't have to judge on here.
no, but
it's all your opinion.
Everybody, yes, of course, it's a freedom, right? So some people want to show off that they've read all those books behind them. When you look at Zoom shows, and everybody's got a big library behind them, which is a dust collector for those who haven't had one yet. Let me tell you. So what I have here, for instance, here you can see, I'm going to bring this down. See these 2 books right here? So I have this one, which is ROI of this, and so this is written by one of my recent guests on the talk show.
Oh.
Adriana.
Okay.
She is right there. She's in Mexico City.
Okay.
And the book is When Strong Women Speak, Strong Women Listen. Anyway,
all
that's the
right.
book. And you know what this is? These are quotes that she's picked up from famous women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's one of my guests. And I have the book. Yeah.
May I respond to that?
Yeah, go.
I like that. I like what she said. I like her book title there, because that could be any people, even when strong people speak, strong people listen. However, For women, that's really important for us to speak up, and then that also frees others to do the same and to be strong in doing so, really grounded and standing firm and stepping up into our power. And that gives others the ability to feel free to do the same. And I don't think that they have as much fear because they see a mentor or another person going out, hey, if she can do it, I can do that.
You know what? Some people, men as well as women, are self-conscious,
Of
uh,
course.
almost to a detriment
Sure.
about how they're coming across, and other people, me oftentimes in particular, I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
trusting myself to get through whatever.
Yeah.
Occasionally there's a real flub up, but
That's life.
you know. Okay, what other questions do you want to ask?
I'm checking time. Are you wanting another question or are you wanting to wrap up here?
No, let's go a few more minutes. This is good.
Okay. How do you feel about feelings? Were they acceptable to have in your home environment, school environment, work environment, and
Are you,
amongst peers?
are you talking about when I was a kid?
Starting there in your home.
I don't remember
Mm.
in detail because I'm really old, but I need to say that um, when I was under 10, it's different because life changes. Everybody goes through this family events. So when I was a kid, I think it was pretty much open um, and a very happy time. And then there were some other times after that that are not so and very confusing, uh, caused by a number of things, which I'm not going to get into. But and then it's a matter of how we, because everyone has this. It's just a
Right.
matter of how we deal with all this.
Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, there's feelings, of course, there's feelings, but what to do about them, yeah, that's another story. And and um, and then how to do something, and then if you get into trouble because of how you dealt with something, I mean, that could last a lifetime,
It does. It really
or
does.
it
Mhm.
could cause something, a reaction. Every action causes a reaction, right? So, I didn't have this wisdom or insight when I was a kid.
We don't. I like what you're saying there. And that really brings up the whole concept of inner child healing. So, some of those traumas that we have at young ages stick with us our entire life, and we may not know what is going on there or why we have that mentality or that thought process or that limiting belief that's preventing us really from expressing our emotions. Or we might get into a relationship or in different scenarios where we're communicating with others and we feel afraid to share because that's what we were told as a child, or someone simply said, like, don't do that in front of these people, or if you're going to cry, go in your room. That's a very common statement among parents, but it can really train a child to say, my emotions are not safe in my living room. They're only safe in my bedroom behind closed doors where I'm not being
Or,
supported by a parent.
or you may think that mother doesn't want to hear what I have to say.
Yeah. Oh, that's a common one. I've seen that come up in Reiki sessions before.
So doesn't that impact mother-daughter relationships
Completely.
for
Mother,
for a
any,
long time,
yeah. Not even mother daughter. It could be mother son, any parent
or
child, I would say.
father-son, of course, yeah.
Yes, for sure. And then you start thinking, oh, and that'll play out. I've even seen this with me is like, well, my time isn't valuable to others. So I don't want to, people will call and you'll hear if they have the same belief. I don't really want to take up your time. Well, if you're valuable and someone's talking to you, they want to speak with you in that moment and they are focused on you. You're not in the way. And so I think one of the things that I overcame actually was this feeling like I was a little kid and I was in somebody's way. So I would even call my parents and say, oh, I know, we can get off the phone. And I'm thinking, why am I doing that? Like, they're talking to me, they want to be in this conversation, and they're spending this time with me right now. And this time is valuable. And they will tell me if they need to go. I don't need to make assumptions about when they need to go. And it's okay to be heard. That's a really big one to overcome. And you can see it playing out in everywhere in your life. You cut yourself off before you're done speaking. All right, another question. You look complete around that. Are you?
Sure, go.
So, when I speak of the desires of the flesh, you can take that in many ways. And one way that has been taken is success. So if your definition of success is related to the 3D things of the world, cars, houses, careers, all those things that we yearn for in society, that maybe COVID gave us the opportunity to, reflect on what's important to us actually, and it may not be all these status things. The question around that is related to, how do these promote or inhibit your goals both professionally and personally? So how can climbing the corporate ladder affect your personal life, or vice
Tot-
versa?
Totally. Because you become a slave to that.
You got it. No matter what it is. If
Yeah.
it's, you want this new car, you want to compete with your neighbor to get the next best whatever, snowblower, can run your life.
So, the fastest way to crash a credit rating is to try to be an entrepreneur when you're not trained properly, or when you have insufficient, incomplete, or even a wrong attitude about becoming an entrepreneur. Doesn't matter who or what, because there's no training. There's no high school class. So you remember back in high school, doesn't matter where, you're a product of the Midwest. I grew up in Boston.
I'm from Austin, Texas, but I went to
Austin,
high school.
Texas, wow.
Yeah.
So, some guys who were not Harvard bound, for instance, they did shop. They were good with their hands. They became plumbers or carpenters or home builders, and they live a lucrative life because they have a trade that a lot of guys, including me, don't know anything about, right? And we were told not to do that. Basically, you got to study, you got to go to Harvard or someplace, right? And that's so wrong. And because there's millions of people today who need reskilling, never mind upskilling, but reskilling into into using tech and not being afraid of it. And the more people, even if they're my age or your age, or in high school right now, or in 8th grade right now. So, in Europe, Denmark,
I've been there.
yeah, or Sweden or Germany, particularly in Denmark, which I happen to know a lot about. So they have, or in France also, they have a test. It's government, education. So they give everybody a test when they're young. Okay, I don't know how old, but young. And if they don't get above a certain score, um, that's it, branded. No college, go to a trade school, and then you get to pick what trade. Maybe they give it another test. Are they good with numbers? Are they good with design? Are they good with hammer and whatever, cars? And then they become pretty good if they're trained well, and they accept that training and apply it to themselves. That becomes their Harvard, So, and then there's everybody else who are, they have more brain development in the arts or in thinking. Somehow they got that when they were growing up, whereas a lot of other people didn't get that. To this day, that still exists. But in Europe, in particular in Europe, Northern Europe, the government will pay for a college education if a kid scores above a certain score. And they won't if they score, but they redirect them into a trade school of some kind. It's not a jail, it's not a parochial system, but it's a practical system. And boy, I think that's so smart. And I think that's needed now more in this country, more than ever, in addition to 1 or 2 years of public service in whether it's a Peace Corps or
Yeah,
whatever, and
that's
they'll get paid,
uh-huh.
but they have to do certain things, and if they do, then they get benefits later.
Yeah.
All right, and it's a plan, and
Hmm.
I don't know why that's not talked about as part of the infrastructure deal that's
Mm.
in the middle of dogfight, political dogfighting. Rather than
Hmm.
solve problems, they're fighting over this BS, and so there's so many weird things going on that you and I and other broadcasters should think about how to get the word out to our own audiences, not to push a political issue, no, human issue, human rights, not a political right. It's all about lifestyle. It's all about living a better life and how through thinking, intelligent thinking, and just to understand people need things, and we got to get it together. There's in this country, we're blessed somehow that there's an unlimited, seemingly unlimited supply of capital available if the government wants to spend it, whether it's in paychecks that you and I got, for being an American, and try to keep money in circulation during the pandemic. That was a brilliant idea. So, back in '08, when there was a financial crash, the Federal Reserve had smart people running it, and they did a lot to protect everything, but they did not do what these guys have just done the past year or two, where they just opened the spigots and put money in circulation so that everybody's taken care of. Now, Bernie Sanders, not political, but history, Bernie Sanders was talking about this for years, and everybody said, "Oh, you're a communist, socialist. Nobody wants to do all that. This is America. We don't do it that way." And man, look what's happened, and it's worked because not forever, but for this emergency period of time, it's propped up everybody's life. So
Mm.
look what's happening right now in lower echelons in restaurant, hotel work, labor shortage of whatever these workers are called, hospitality, service.
Yep.
Uh, there's a shortage. I don't want to go to work for the guy again,
Mm.
and
I have heard this.
because their life has been actually better. If they got vaccinated, then they're even healthier. And now they're reluctant to go back into the old job.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, restaurants and bars and other things other companies are not being staffed like they were 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when you and I want to go out and spend money, well, we have to wait in line or if things take longer. And by the way, they're more expensive. So what's freedom? You know, people have a right to do things and they do it. And then organizations and structures and people play or try to play catch up if they can.
Mm.
I didn't think we were going to have this discussion an hour ago, but
Ah,
but here
well,
we are on
well,
your
thank
show.
you. Me either. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience today, Edwin? It's been great to have you on.
Go to globalbusinessnews.net and check it out. It's free.
Fantastic.
We've had, according to Google Analytics, if you can believe all that, how they set their algorithms measuring things. But they're the only game in town with some kind of a measurement device of audience. So Google has said that when we started our talk show in early April of 2020, up through last week, uh, we've had like 120,000 audience page views, according to
Great.
them.
Yeah.
So what's a page view? Well, so it's not one person that we're talking to. It's one person looking at the page we're on right now,
Right.
and that's called a page view.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they go to your Momentum site or they go to my global business site and they say, oh, there's a show featuring IBM or Ford Motor Company or Apple Computer,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I'm going to click there. So that becomes another page view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Google measures that, and that's what all that means.
Mm-hmm.
So you should subscribe if you're not already. And you'll find it a little confusing at first, but if you just look at very specific things, um, it'll be very educational, not only for you, but for any broadcaster to know the audience.
Yeah, yeah, I found that. So actually, I'll just give a little background to the audience. Edwin found me on LinkedIn, and that's how we got connected. And I was on Edwin's show. And yes, I do remember when you sent me the recording or the link to mine that there are a lot of interviews on there. And so it did take some strolling, maybe scrolling or
Yeah,
strolling
yeah,
to find. It's like you're, out on the retail market, walking down the streets looking for your show that you want to watch or which store you want to enter. So it's really interesting there because there are a lot that you have done, and that's pretty impressive. Just since COVID has started, that says a lot to what's been going on in the last year and a half ish.
yeah,
Or
about.
will be a year and a
Yeah.
half. Yeah,
Yeah. So I wish you well, and let's do this
yeah.
again. Come back on our show, and let me come back on yours someday.
Sounds
And
great.
we can try to have a meaningful conversation about something.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Thank you to the audience. We are happy to have you here, and we
Thank
will
you.
be back again. Thank you, Edwin.
Ciao. Thank you.